Hi, my name is Penny and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to do another top 5 Wednesday video, so I'll leave some links down to the group below, but this week the challenge is the top 5 books, non-horror books that scared you. So I found this one quite difficult to come up with books. Every time I would come up, I'd look at my shelf and I'd find a book, oh that one scared me, and then I'd realize that it was a horror book and so didn't count. So I have eventually come up with 5 books, but I gave up on putting them in any kind of order because I kept changing my mind about what was scarier. So I've just shuffled up the books and we're going to do them in a random order. So first of all, let's talk about the book that I don't have a physical copy of, and that is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. In this book we've got this guy who's kind of got an ordinary life, and I'm trying to work out how much I can say without it being a spoiler, but I think what is said on the back of the book is that he gets kidnapped and he wakes up and his life is completely different. Now, it's definitely a spoiler to tell you why his life is different, but once you find out and just throughout the story, that kind of builds up into this crazy situation where things just get more and more extreme, and it's kind of terrifying to think about what it would be like to be in that situation and to have to go through that much just to get your life back. So even though I absolutely love this book and I think there were some really beautiful moments and thoughts in it, it was definitely pretty terrifying by the end. So the second book I'm going to talk about is The Chronicles of Thomas Covenant by Stephen Donaldson. So this is a wrap-up of the first volume, first 3 books. The first Chronicles, and there's also the second Chronicles. You can tell by the quality of this book that it's a very old series from the 70s. So we follow this man called Thomas Covenant, obviously, who has leprosy, he's got a lot of health issues, and his wife, I can't remember if she is dead or she's just left him, but he's kind of like this grumpy old man, and then he stumbles through this portal into another world. And because of where and when he comes through, they think that he is kind of prophesized to be their savior, but actually he's kind of a piece of shit. So one thing that this book did get a lot of criticism for is there is trigger warnings for rape, and it's not particularly well dealt with, so that's a bit of a shame. What is this book, the kind of the world that he ends up in is kind of like Lord of the Rings world, kind of epic proportions, and there's always, like, I think as he's traveling through different parts of the world in different times of the day, these different things happen, like there's different monsters come, or sometimes it's just like fire or like acid rain that like burns you. It's a really scary world to live in, and because Thomas Covenant's like new to this world, it's all kind of a surprise to you all the time. I think there was less surprises in the second Chronicles. But yes, this world was definitely a scary world and not one that I would ever want to go to. Alright, the next book on my pile is Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. So this is a sadly unfinished series so far that follows Quoth. I didn't even know how to say that, but he ends up being an orphan after his parents are killed by the Chandrian, and then he goes off to have all these adventures and journeys, and it's a really amazing world, and the magic systems are great, and he's a musician, and he goes to university to study magic, and I mean a lot of people have read this book so you probably know about it, but the scary part in Name of the Wind is definitely the Chandrian themselves. So far you only know snippets of them, but the little bits that you do know are just so terrifying, and I'm really not looking forward to the third book when I expect that we're going to get a lot more of the Chandrian, and I think the third book is just going to be terrifying for that reason. I mean, already what Quoth had to go through after his family was killed was a pretty scary thing to read about and to think about if it happened to you. Okay, so the next book on my pile is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. So the Raven Cycle, really. I don't think the Raven Boys book gets too much into the scary stuff, but the later books, Cabe's Water gets pretty terrifying. So in the Raven Cycle, it's essentially about this group of friends who are trying to find this mythical king called Glendower, who will grant their wishes if they find him. And really what makes this book great is kind of the characters and their friendships, and also the depth of the world and how many different kind of magics are kind of pulled in. But what makes it terrifying is definitely Cabe's Water near the end of the series. I don't remember which book exactly. It goes crazy. It's definitely not safe. It's not nice. And because by then I kind of grown quite attached to the characters, I was quite scared that something was going to happen to them, so I did not like that. But I did like it at the same time. That's what being scared is like, right? Especially in terms of fiction. In real life, being scared is pretty much always bad, but in fiction, being scared is both bad and good. Alright, so we're up to the last book on my pile, which this is actually just a stand-in for the actual book. So this is a book from the Saga of the Exiles, which is a trilogy that links into the Galactic Melo trilogy by Julian May. And there's also another book, The Intervention. And I'm never sure which series actually comes first because they deal with time travel, and the characters from one trilogy time travel back in time to the other trilogy, but things that happen in that trilogy impact what happens in the other one, right? That's complicated, but it's also really cool. So the Galactic Melo trilogy is the one that's set in the future, where people have started to develop different like mental powers, so like telepathy, telekinesis, all that kind of thing. And in the story you mainly follow this particular family who are really strong in these powers. But there's quite a negative atmosphere in the world towards people with these powers. People are afraid of what they might do, kind of like X-Men movie styles. So somewhere along the way, the series turns into a murder mystery, and it's quite scary because you really don't have any idea who the murderer is, but slowly you begin to realize that it's one of the characters that you know, which of course it was just some random. It's not very exciting, is it? And it feels like quite a betrayal when you find out who it is. So it's just kind of terrifying to think about what it would be like in that situation if people around you were dying and you knew it was probably being done by someone you knew, but you didn't know who it was, who to trust, who to protect. Whoa, scary. Okay, so that is the end of my pile. Top 5 non-horror books that scared me. As I said, I found this quite hard, so I would really like to know what other non-horror books there are that are scary. So if you have any ideas, let me know, because I don't tend to read too much real horror because it's a bit too scary for me, and also I don't like the scariness to be the whole story. I like there to be also some other stuff going on. So kind of books that are focused on other things and the scariest on the side is probably quite a good option rather than reading horror books. I just babbled for a long time. Anyway, if you have any suggestions for other books I might read in this category, I would definitely be interested. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.